Whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor. So now that Disney owns Marvel and that there's a new version of Thor that's a woman, since Thor is the child of a king, does that mean that Thor is now officially a Disney princess?
I think so.
Well, that's not what we're talking about, but we are talking about his Mjolnir. Today on TV Guys, welcome. I am Matt.
I'm Brian.
And this, again, is TV Guys. If you don't know what Mjolnir is or how to spell it, because there's a J in there, that is Thor's hammer. So I know this isn't the movies on a Monday, and the Thor's hammer is in the movies or in the comics. I don't think it's popped up in any of the Marvel shows quite yet, but we thought this would be a fun idea because the whole idea of Thor's hammer is that it can't just be lifted by anyone. It's got to be lifted by someone who's worthy. So, Brian, when we were like, let's figure out some TV characters who could lift Mjolnir, who are worthy, there's definitely a lot of ways you could define worthy. What in your idea was like your context for how you defined worthy?
I'm glad you brought this up because I knew that you would have a whole criteria system. It's got to be meet these check marks.
It does, yes.
Yeah. For me, gut reactions only. And they're all correct.
Oh my gosh, that took me by surprise. So your intricate logical criteria, et cetera, I'm going with my gut. Like, I can't argue with that.
I have specific moments for each of my characters that'll show why. Also, you guys can't see it, but Matt is he's in the Sanctum Sanctorum from Doctor Strange.
That's
except
true.
The reality stone is kind of peeling back reality because I can see some shirts in the corner behind you.
Dang it. Stupid reality stone. Wait, right here. Yeah. Get up there, reality. Fix it. I'm doing a visual gag on an audio podcast. That makes sense.
See, I told you it was funny. You always told me those were bad.
That's true. I just wanted to be like you. Sometimes I think, why am I not more like Brian Jones? And then it makes me sad. So here we are.
Yep.
All right. Well, I have an intricate system for determining worthiness. So Brian and I were even texting earlier today, and he's just like, just so you know, I've got like 7 picks. I'm like, dude, I could barely get 3. I had since like grabbed a couple other ones that are like fringe category, but I have very high standards for worthy. I mean, like when like Hawkeye, I like Hawkeye, and I know he's not like anyone's favorite superhero specifically, but after his like recent show, he should probably climb the charts on people's list. There was an honest trailer I actually loved. It's just like talking about Kate Bishop and like how she broke the mold by being a superhero that likes Hawkeye. And so I if Hawkeye can't lift it, or if Iron Man, I mean, I guess you can understand Iron Man a little bit, but Black Widow, she couldn't lift it because they all do this in Avengers 2. All the Avengers like try and lift it. And there's some really worthy people in that group. And it's like, if they can't lift it, what chance does Ted Mosby have to lift Mjolnir? None. 0%.
Yeah. And just to get this out of the way, I don't think either of us could lift it.
Yeah, probably not. Brian, you might get closer than I am. You might make it nudge.
There we go. We'll see.
He's like, I'll take it. I wasn't expecting a compliment. Usually we fight.
Well, since I have more, I'll start one out.
Sounds good.
I'll start with the one that I think is the least likely that you will have ever seen the show.
Okay.
It's a show that I'm rewatching for some reason. Do you remember the show Step by Step?
I know of it. I never watched it because it's another one of the 90s like live action shows. I'm like, no, I'm going to watch other lame things.
Well, Step by Step was basically like the 90s version of the Brady Bunch, where they had Patrick Duffy from Dallas and Suzanne Summers from Three's Company were the parents. They each had 3 kids and they had the blended family. In addition to their kids, they have Cody, who is Frank, who is Patrick Duffy's character's nephew, who is this like really dumb demolition guy, like, hey man, and he lives in a van in the garage. He absolutely could lift with Thor's hammer
because he's strong.
he is well, he is strong, but that's not part of it. It's
You're
all
right.
about
It is
who's
not.
worthy, not who's strong.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, he's dumb, which isn't part of it, but just to pull the character, he's so dumb, but he's always like very loyal. Like he will do anything for anybody at the drop of a hat. He has a strong moral center that will like just not waver. And like his like I'm gonna call these the Captain America Endgame moments, which it should be self-explanatory. The moment in Endgame when theaters erupted when Captain America wielded Mjolnir would
Yep.
be there's an episode where Dana, one of the older step siblings, got herself in a situation where she's like at this bar with all these not so great guys, and they're all hitting on her, and he decides he's gonna like save her and get her out of there, and they all start picking a fight with him, and it's like a bar full of like I don't know a bunch of guys. He's clearly outnumbered, and he knows he's gonna lose, but he's just like I forget what he says, but like he's like no, like I'm still gonna fight. Like that's his version of fighting against Thanos to save his new step cousin. He does that all the time. He's always the moral center of the group.
Hmm. Okay, I'll take your word for it. I'm reserving my my fighting with you and debating for characters that I actually know.
Yeah, that's why I
So
started with Cody.
yeah, I'm not gonna.
I'd be like, Matt's not gonna know this character, but the more I watch the show, I'm like, but he's the perfect pick.
This is a perfect pick that I'm gonna go with. That you haven't. I don't think you've watched this show yet. But props and shout out to the guy that we always talk about on our podcast, Paul, because for so long he keeps going on and on about Ted Lasso. Watch Ted Lasso. Watch Ted Lasso. Well, guess what? I watched Ted Lasso, and there's no doubt in my mind of all the characters on TV, Ted Lasso could lift Mjolnir. And I just realized I skipped over my joke. I was going to like just straight out put it be like, oh, I think the first person would be Vision from WandaVision, because he's actually lifted it. So I missed my shot at doing that right away and joking around with it. I also would have said Jesus from The Chosen would also qualify, but I figure our criteria is like no one who has lifted it before or God characters. Not that Jesus is a character. Anyway, going back to Ted Lasso, love him, love this show. If you haven't watched it, Ted Lasso's fantastic, and he is this coach who is just oozing with charisma and positivity and joy. And frequently throughout the show, like different characters are like, I might not agree or might think that he's going to ruin this football club, but you can't help but to root for him. And you even see some of his worst sides too. There is arcs that he goes through, and so you see some of his like anxiety and some panic attacks that he goes through, and that's in both first and second season. But even in the midst of that, he has like a couple times like he snaps at someone once and etc. And it's like, well, I mean, Worthy isn't perfect, but it's still overall like his heart is I want to do the right thing. His heart is I want to encourage and empower as many people as possible. Mm-hmm. His heart is I want us all to get to the same place together and be unified. And all those to me, I was like, yeah, this is Worthy to me. There's another qualifier I have for Worthy that I'm going to talk about with my next pick.
All right. I'll kind of with you to my pick. I'll take your word for it. But speaking of oozing, do you ever realize you can only ooze two things: sexuality and pus?
I ooze a lot more than that, so I'll let you figure out what I'm oozing. What was this joke? I don't even know where I'm going.
That was a Creed reference from The Office.
I know, but okay. Then I took it and made it weird.
I started to realize, like, did Matt not get that was a Creed?
I didn't until like I was already trying to like turn it around and do something else. But
okay, gotcha. Next pick is one that you and I both know the show very well. And is there anybody better from the Lost universe to lift Mjolnir than Hurley?
Yes, because my next pick is also from the Lost universe.
It better not be John Locke.
I love Hurley though. I do really love Hurley.
Yeah.
But go ahead and give me your reasonings about why you would pick Hurley.
Well, kind of the same reasons that he gets to be the protector of the island at the end. Spoiler alert. But he's always like kind of the same thing as I said about Cody. Like he's always protected people. He's always been there for people. He again, his Captain America moment is when he rode the van and busted over one of the others to save everybody at the end of season 3.
Yes. Um, so he is a plagiarist, though. He tries to steal the Empire Strikes Back script and write it before it ever gets written.
No, I believe he said he was going to help George Lucas out because he's seen the movie. Because I think he was going to give George Lucas the script and accept no credit.
All right, fair. I mean, Hurley is so lovable. It's really hard to fight against that pick for Hurley. And there's nothing saying that more than one person from a certain TV show can't also lift Mjolnir.
Yeah.
But the other person that I thought of, because there was another point. So I'm, looking at Ted Lasso, I'm like, Ted, from the get-go, from the very first episode that we see, he could lift Mjolnir. But there are other characters that they have to kind of go through a process, and they get to a spot by the end of the show where they are worthy. And so I look at, the original Thor movie, and what was it that changed for Thor that suddenly made him be worthy again? And one of the big things that happened in that movie was he stood up to this giant destroyer robot without any powers, so that his friends could live and escape. And he didn't have any guarantee of success. So it was a bit of I'm willing to lay my life down to protect other people. I'm willing to sacrifice what it takes in order to benefit the people that I care the most about. And so obviously there's a couple of characters that do that on Lost, but mine that I'm like, I think this is the character apart from Hurley that fits that side of it would be Desmond. I think Desmond by the end of the seasons, because at first I'm like, oh, Charlie might, but it's like, no, there wasn't. Charlie had a really good end moment, but I don't think at any other point he could lift it.
I was worried your pick was going to be John Locke, and I was going to fight you on that one. But no, yeah, I think I can see that with Desmond.
I think when we first meet him, when he's still in his hiding moment and his hiding mindset, that he's not worthy. No. And I think season 3 is really what starts to turn him around. Yeah. And it's season 4 when he has the phone call with Penny, and when he finally gets his focus and his bearings after trying to save Charlie for all of season 3 and failing, and then realizing that he can save, in a way, Penny, that he can save himself, that he can be together with her and everything can work out. That then once he does do that, he's willing to do whatever it takes to keep her safe and to keep his son safe. And even when Ben's in like season 5, when he's going to shoot Penny and Desmond's there and saves her and all that, like there's a lot of different stuff that Desmond does all the way to the final season when he is like, I'm here to help save the island because I know that when I save the island, I save the world. Yeah. And so he gets that for me, especially in those final 2 seasons for sure.
Yeah, I believe that. I think that's a good call.
Thank you. Look at that. We're buddies.
So speaking of shows that have 2 different actors or 2 different characters that could have it, my next 2 are from the same show.
Okay.
And get your clickers ready because I am talking about Power Rangers.
Click, click.
Okay, so to get this out of the way, it's not Tommy. People think, oh, no. Tommy is the Iron Man of the Power Rangers universe. Yeah, he's well known, and he does a lot of heroic stuff. He's not a bad guy, but he loves to be flashy, and he loves to be in front of everyone's face. He's got to be the cool one. He's got to get the dragon and the tiger robots and everything like that. No, Jason, original Red Ranger Jason, is the Captain America. He's got so much ability, both in like leadership and in fighting skills, but he was like quiet about it. Like he only steps up to fight and show his skills when he needs to. And he's such like a dignified leader that he still managed to have a good presence even when Tommy shows up and is like, look at me, I'm Tommy, and his moment.
Hey guys, look at me, I'm Tommy. Yeah, I want to see him do that.
That's my Jason David Frank impression.
Spot on.
Which, to be confusing, Jason David Frank, the actor, is Tommy. Jason, the character, is Austin St. John.
Everyone out there got that? Good.
Does anybody else care?
No.
Okay, his moment is though it's in season 1, right when Tommy shows up and he's the evil Green Ranger and things are all going bad, and Jason gets teleported to Goldar's dungeon, and he's got no powers. And this is still back when Goldar is a threat. and he still stands up and he's like, no, I will fight Goldar to the death if I need to, to be able to get back to my friends, to be able to save them, save the world. And it really shows his character as a ranger, I think, for sure.
Nice. And who was the other one? Because actually, my other pick here, I've got two from the same one as well.
All right, sounds good. Is Adam, who is the second Black Ranger, who was in the movie. He kind of the same thing. Like, he is such a quiet, kind of shy character, but first of all, he's like one of the best fighters, both the actor and the character. He's like insane skills. But again, he's not going to brag about it. He's just quiet and competent, and he's the guy you send in to get something done. And his moment would be actually after Power Rangers and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. He came back for a cameo appearance in Power Rangers in Space, where he came like,
In space.
Yeah, I'm surprised you know that.
I do.
Yeah. Adam shows up out like not as a ranger, just as himself, like out of nowhere, like a flying kick, and like helps defeat the monster. And then later on, he's helping train Carlos, who's like the current Black Ranger. And Adam pulls out like his broken morpher, and they're like, "Yeah, you can't morph with that because it's damaged." And then of course that he's going to. Then later on, when the Power Rangers are they're kind of losing, he takes the broken morpher, and even though it's like gonna damage him, he still morphs back into the original Black Ranger and like helps until he like his body gets too weak. Kind of like we were saying about Thor, he like pushes himself for his friends to the limits. So Jason and Adam, I think, are the top two Power Rangers.
Yeah. I mean, Power Rangers is going to, like, for anyone who's a fan of Power Rangers, I imagine that probably jumped to mind pretty easily because, like, you think about with Mjolnir and thinking about people that are worthy, you also think about people that, like, you want on your side for a battle of good and evil versus evil, that, like, who are the epitome of good. And it's very easy in a show like Power Rangers to find characters like that.
Yeah.
So again, I can't really fault you. I don't remember too much about Power Rangers 2 to be like, oh, but remember when Jason did this? Because I don't remember anything that Jason did. So I just was like a kid. I'm like, fight, kick him in the face. Kick that one. You did it. You kicked him. That's all I remember.
There's a lot of kicking. There
is a lot of kicking. That's true. And I mean, they miss a lot, but you wouldn't know it because that guy just acts like he got kicked. So that's how it works. Yep. Well, mine is from a show that I know I don't get too much feedback from people about this show. So whenever I've brought this up, no one's been like, that's a great pick, man. Thanks for bringing it up. So I apologize if you haven't seen this show, but it's a married couple from a show called Once Upon a Time. This show, I brought it up, it's like good. It's not worth all the seasons that it has. It should, like, halfway through it should be like, all right, now we're done. But from the get-go, we have Snow White and Prince Charming, and they are such a good couple. They're a couple that is very easy to root for. I mean, they're a fairy tale couple. They're like perfect and meant to be together, all this sort of stuff. And they are both like so righteous, they're like, do the right thing no matter what it costs. And there are so many times that the two, in order to do the right thing, they end up, something happens to them. They get somehow like split up or put in different places, or there's one time when they have to like almost share a consciousness sort of thing. So it's like only one person can be awake at a time. So it's like when one of them goes to sleep, the other one can wake up, and they never get to actually talk to each other. So they have to like write each other notes to be able to have a relationship while they're in this phase. And the main character is the daughter of these two. And so they are also showing their love for their daughter and showing their support for their daughter and their grandson as well, who's also in this show. And so they are great pinnacle of like, take care of your family, take care of the people that you love, and also take care of your community and do the right thing for everyone around you, even if they are the villain, to do the right thing for them. There are so many reformed villains in the show Once Upon a Time. Mm-hmm. It's nuts. Like anytime there's a villain that's going to be on there for a whole season, you can bet the next season they're going to be a hero. Like every single time they're like, oh, you are bad, but here's why you're bad. Let's show you love and bring you to the good side. It happens so much in that show. It's nuts.
I can't give any feedback because again, this isn't a show I've seen. But from your reasoning, it sounds I sounds like I would agree with them.
We are on a roll with this.
Yeah.
You got another show I haven't seen?
No, you have seen all of the rest of mine.
Okay.
Yeah. I told Matt that all my picks were inarguable, and he's like, "I am excited to argue."
And I so far I haven't gotten there yet.
All right, how about the titular Chuck Bartowski from Chuck?
Oh man, he was one that I flirted with. He's good. I don't know if I'd call he's really close. If he's not worthy, he's really close.
The only other person from that show who could possibly be worthy might be Devin, but I mean, I still think Chuck because Chuck gets thrown into this world, but he like rises to the occasion on more than one occasion.
You're right.
He rises to more than one of the occasions. Is that a better way to say it?
Yeah, sure. He's one that's like it depends on the season for him because like there are times when he lets it go to his head though. You know, there's the insecurity that Chuck has because that's his big flaw of the series is that he does have an insecurity. He's insecure that he doesn't deserve to be with Sarah. He's insecure that what he has to offer isn't that great. He's insecure that he's just going to end up getting hurt again. And we see like him sabotage things accidentally because of this insecurity a lot.
Yeah, that's fair. But I don't know. I got the feeling that like I feel like I could see him lifting Mjolnir and then being like, "Oh, I did it."
I could see that scene too. I think this one I would lean against it. I think this is the first one that I can say maybe not, but he's got a lot of the goods to get close to it.
Would you rather see Devin?
I don't know. I didn't even think of Devin because I thought of Chuck, and I'm like, "Ooh, he's a good pick to talk about." But Devin, Devin is a little self-absorbed in some ways. In other ways, he's great about like caring about other people.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot that he is too focused on in order to be truly worthy.
But one thing's for sure that Casey would just assume that he'd be able to do it and would be furious that he couldn't.
Yep. Sarah wouldn't even try. No. Sarah would not try.
She'd be the Black Widow.
And Morgan would be like, all right, this is cool. And then like he'd like have a comedic thing about it and like he wouldn't be able to do it, but he would know he wouldn't be able to do it. Like, yeah, that makes sense.
Morgan would get a replica and carry that around. Like, look at me, guys.
Jeff and Lester would scheme a way to be able to lift it.
Actually, maybe at the end when they made Jeff like not an idiot, maybe new Jeff could do it. I don't know.
I don't think so. I don't think like reversing like head trauma is gonna be the answer to making you worthy. All right, I've got one that is probably on yours, but okay. I don't. If you don't have on yours, I'll be surprised.
Okay, go for it.
I think in the last 15 years or so, this character has gotten a bit too neurotic that he wouldn't be worthy. But I think like pre 2000 and something, I don't know what my exact timeline is because you would know it better. But I think early years and for the first couple decades, Kermit the Frog would be able to lift Mjolnir.
I have a Muppet, but it's not Kermit.
I think he could. I think once he gets into that neurotic side that we see more recently, I don't think so. I think that would discredit him. But I think up into that point, he is another one of those like community. Because I think that's a big thing about being worthy is like, do you make everyone around you better? Do you improve the lives of every single person? And he is all about the other Muppets, and he's all about like helping everyone and like everyone putting on this show together and being, he's so wholesome.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say no to a wholesome character.
I will say that especially early Kermit, the Jim Henson era Kermit, from the movie that you said you disagreed with being the best one, the Muppet movie, has an absolute Captain America moment where like Doc Hopper has guys with literal guns and a frog killer, which apparently is a thing. And, Kermit steps out wearing cowboy boots and a cowboy hat and basically says like, hey, I don't want to do your frog leg restaurant. I want to, go to Hollywood and make people happy with all my friends. And like, that's his moment. Yeah. Of course, it took Animal being accidentally taking growing pills and growing large and scaring them off to save him. But
as one does.
yeah.
And Kermit would be the second frog to lift Mjolnir, because there is a Throg in the comics, a toad that lifts Thor, or it lifts Mjolnir and becomes a Thor frog.
Huh.
I don't know. It happens. It's true. It's in the comics. What the heck? I don't know why.
That'd be cool. So since we're on this subject, I was going to save them for my last pick, but can you guess what Muppet I chose?
Sweetums.
No, I chose Gonzo.
That was my first initial gut pick, but I overthought it.
Because what I've come to terms as like really why Gonzo was my favorite Muppet. It's because he exemplifies the two things that the Muppets are known for that make them successful. The one is like the wacky, off the wall humor, which you get with Gonzo, with his love for chickens, with his being shot out of a cannon, with his relationship with Rizzo. Like, that's wacky Gonzo. But also the sentimentality and like the heart of it. There are so many different times that they lean on Gonzo specifically for the heart of something. Let's see. The Muppet Movie, Muppet Christmas Carol, Muppet's Letters to Santa, which is, the Muppet Very Merry Christmas. That one has the dumb title. All of them have great moments with Gonzo being like the sentimental heart of it. Like in that one where Kermit is doing the It's a Wonderful Life, and he sees what the Muppets would be like without him. The one that really they save to the end and have that big emotional moment with is Gonzo, who's like homeless and sad and singing a song on a park bench about why everything matters. Like that's the big draw, and they lean on Gonzo for that. They do that time and time again because he has that sensitive spirit and that inner caring, along with like the daring stuff.
Yeah. I think there's a selfish side to Gonzo that we see in certain like Muppets in Space is the one I'm thinking of the most, that I feel like it's a lot more like it doesn't matter what happens to anyone else. Gonzo's going to figure out what his past is and what his like family is. And I think I see that a little, and like even the way he sometimes treats Rizzo in the relationship, where it's like, Rizzo, it doesn't matter if you get hurt because you'll be fine. Like
I suppose.
I feel like I get a little bit of that from him depending on the version.
Yeah. I mean, maybe Kermit might be like the more obvious option. He is more wholesome than Gonzo, I think, but I don't know. I always like try to stay away from every Muppet answer just being Kermit.
He's just he is a good character. Then he started drinking, then he got neurotic, and then to cool himself down, he started drinking tea and then realized nothing was his business. So
yeah,
good job, Kermit.
All right.
You handled it.
So was that all of yours? Or?
No, I've got other ones that
I have
considered.
One more that we haven't talked about.
All right, go ahead and hit me with that one.
All right. Eric Matthews, Boy Meets World.
Oh man. All right.
He has some selfish moments, but same thing. Like, this is the through that played through even into Girl Meets World, is that Eric is someone who cares about people, like above all else. He doesn't have any brains, but he has heart.
Yeah. I think it depends on the version too. Like, when I cheated with Desmond, where I'm like, oh, in later seasons he would get that. I think you'd have to do that with Eric too, because he's like the big brother one, and he's not yet stupid.
Yeah,
then he's definitely got the selfishness. But when they took away his intelligence, he ends up he can't afford to be selfish because he's not smart enough. Mm-hmm. And he still has problems. I don't think I would say he's able to lift it, but I would say there are some really good moments. Would you say his endgame moment in terms of that would be like during the prank wars?
Yeah.
And it's him. Yeah, I figured.
That ends the prank war and keeps them all friends?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's probably like his best character moment. I really like also too. I don't remember what happened earlier in the episode, but I remember the ending of it when like he's talking with his dad, and like this is when his dad owns that one outdoor shop, and there's something about like his dad no longer being there, and like I don't remember if there's a scare or something like that, but he's talking about like the lessons he's learned from his dad, and Eric's like, Dad, I know you think like someday you're gonna leave me. It was like you're not gonna ever leave me, because the things that you've taught me, they're gonna be in here, they're gonna be with me always, so you're never really gonna be gone.
I remember that.
Do you remember what led up to that? Because I just remember the payoff. I don't remember the
It
build up.
wasn't a scare. They never did like a health scare with Alan, the dad. I think it was more like I think Alan got frustrated with him because he's saying like you need to learn like learn stuff because like I'm not going to be around to hold your hand up for the rest of your life. I think it was one of those kind of
Yes,
moments.
that makes more sense. That sounds a lot more
Yeah,
familiar.
because they did the big scare, or they with Jonathan Turner, and they did the whole well they did it and then killed off Sean's dad. They never did it with Alan.
Yeah. So my other pick that I thought about, and this is again I'm on the fence because I didn't want to bring up one like this is the whole point of the show. So it's from The Good Place, and the whole point is
Oh
that
yeah,
these characters get better, and by the end, certain characters probably like the way it's written is probably all of them would deserve to lift
wait,
it by
can
the
I
end of it.
guess? Sorry,
Yeah,
is it Jason?
it's actually Eleanor. Like I know she's the
Huh,
main character, but she
I
really
can see
is
that
like
actually.
the heart of that arc to
Hmm.
go from where we first meet her to the very end. And I think the moment when because there's a lot of moments where she makes these sacrifices. And
Hmm.
that's kind of what I go back to too with when I was talking about that with Thor is that like laying it doesn't matter what the sacrifice is, you're gonna do it to do the right thing. And I think the one that pushed her over the edge is when all four of them were getting tested, and she was the only one that passed the test. And she like cut off the judge when the judge was talking about like because the deal was all four of these characters are given a test to see if they can get into the good place, if they really have improved enough. And she's the only one who passes it. And so the if any one of them lost that challenge, then all four of them wouldn't get to go to the good place. And so when she's like, "Oh, Jason, you failed. You did this wrong. Cheetah, you did this wrong. It took you too long to pick out a hat." All this sort of stuff that gets down to Eleanor, and it's like, and Eleanor, and then Eleanor cuts her off, and it's just like, I failed too. This was what my thing was, and I completely blew it, and I clearly didn't learn anything. And it was like we all failed anyway. I don't need you guys to feel even worse that I passed it and that you have caused me to go to the bad place forever because of
Hmm.
choices you made. I think that's where we got the moment of, yep, she's gotten worthy enough.
Yeah,
I think I
that's
used
fair.
probably about 30 extra words in that story to tell it. It wasn't as succinct as I thought it was going to be when I started.
No, I believe that. And more, it kind of surprised when you first say Eleanor because like, at the very beginning, like she's definitely not worthy, but by the
Absolutely.
end, I mean, she does have a great arc.
Yeah.
And to your point, I feel like Jason is kind of too dumb to have an arc.
Yeah. Like, and he still gets one, but I mean, there's a lot of handicap that he gets for being as dumb as he is.
I also think that Janet would be like a Vision type who could do it.
Yeah, probably.
Mhm.
Especially like the later incarnations of herself, like to improve the
Yeah.
good part of herself. Like you start off the way that you are and you still improve on that. That's really good.
Mm. That's all the picks I had. I think we came up with some really good, interesting picks. Who would you pick, listeners? You normally do that. You normally call it to listeners. I'm taking it from you. What do you think of our picks? What are your picks?
Go ahead and call. I'm Fraser Crane and I'm ready to listen. I've actually started watching Frasier. Angie and I we started watching Frasier about like half a season in. So
Nice.
I know.
I've only seen the episodes of Frasier where they have cast members from Cheers show up.
It's very like dated for sure.
Yeah.
But there's a charm about it. I was like, oh, I get why it was on and why it was a success. It's very different from what I've seen of Cheers,
Hmm.
but it's still like very sitcom formula. And,
Yeah.
like if once per episode when there's gonna be like a turn or something like that, I'm like, oh, this is gonna happen. And Angie's like, yeah, probably. And then it happens. We're like, look at us. We know sitcoms.
Yeah.
We know the basic formulas.
My favorite moment in Frasier, and this isn't a big spoiler, but it's just like retconning a mistake because at one point in Cheers, when they didn't think he was going to be a character, Frasier mentioned that his dad was dead, and his dad's a main character in Frasier.
Yep.
And at one point, I think is when Sam comes to visit, and Sam says like, "Oh yeah, he said you were dead," and then Frasier's like, "Oh, we were having a fight or something at the time." It's just them retconning like, "Yeah, that's why. Don't think about it."
It's funny. I I wonder how people like people who write these things, how they keep things straight. Because like there are some shows that like excel at the details, and now we've got TV in a way that's like, oh, by the way, we also have these massive universe. Every line has to pass the test of like, does it contradict anything else? Like you watch an episode of Loki, and anytime that they say a line, it could possibly contradict 30 other movies or shows that have existed. And it's like you have to have all of that knowledge at any time. I think they have like a Marvel Bible that
A lot of shows
like,
have a show Bible. They've talked about
yeah,
that on Office Ladies. They had an Office Bible.
yeah. You have to with Marvel though,
Yeah,
for
like
sure.
Loki's not going to suddenly be like, "What brother? I don't have a brother."
Yeah, that would be huge oversight. But like Shang-Chi this year, or Shang-Chi, I think is how it's pronounced. Shang-Chi this year, they like do some timeline stuff, and then like when they're introducing all these characters, then they introduce them in the modern timeline. They're like present day, and I'm like, I bet that they're not showing a year because they don't even know what year it'd be, because this is post snap, and they're not entirely sure when it's going to be. This is for sure 2023 or something like that.
Yeah. Or like Doctor Strange and Wong in Spider-Man No Way Home, when they made point of like, yeah, Wong is like the supreme leader because you were gone for 5 years.
Yeah. By the way, okay, I have thought of this since watching Spider-Man. This isn't a spoiler. You see it in the trailer. There's no spoilers for Spider-Man. You don't have to abandon ship here. But we see when they go to visit Doctor Strange, they make this big deal about how everything is like frozen and snowy, and like a door was open to like a snow area, and so it blew in this giant blizzard. Why the heck did they make that choice? It doesn't function in the story at all. It doesn't do anything to the story. In fact, it makes the set worse because they have to not only build the set, but then color everything white and then also put all this fake snow in it. There's no logical reason I can think of why they did this. I don't even think it's foreshadowing anything. If that ends up foreshadowing, great. I don't think it is, though. I think it's just a choice they made. And it's like, why the freaking heck did you make this choice? It doesn't make any sense to me.
It's because they can't. You know, I saw an interview with Jason Alexander about Seinfeld. This is going to be related. He's saying like in other shows, if you thought of this funny thing of dialogue or this funny joke, but it didn't fit into the story, they would cut it. Like, no, we're just going to do it. It doesn't matter if like this whole string of dialogue has nothing to do with the plot. If it's funny, we're going to do it. And it's the same thing. Like, it doesn't have to be plot related. Like, if they can and it's world building, and they can make it make sense, then why not?
Yeah. There was an episode of Seinfeld that I can think of where it's like it was the joke where Jerry answers the phone from like the telemarketer, and it's like, oh, yeah, I'm interested. Can you give me your number? Oh, you don't want me to call you back later? Oh, you don't want to get disturbed when you're at home? Exactly. And then it hangs up. And it's like, that's a great joke.
Yeah.
But it didn't do anything for the episode. But then it's like Jerry also didn't have anything else he did in that episode.
Yeah.
So that was his D story, that 10-second conversation on the phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just had that in my head. Oh yeah. Also, this tangent is also a Jason Alexander interview. He said that like early on, he was looking at a script, and he was just talking to Larry David. He's like, what are you talking about? You have this line, this stuff with George. And like, first of all, this situation would never happen to anybody. And nobody would ever react the way you have George doing. And Larry David's like, what are you talking about? It happened to me? That's exactly what I did. And then he was like, oh, I'm playing Larry David.
Yes, I have heard that story. That's a great story. Larry David is a weird man.
Yeah.
Well, sorry. Did you have anything else?
Just transitioning into trivia awkwardly.
Well, I was gonna just ignore the transition. I was just gonna shift without a clutch here. So last week we had our trivia. We were talking about both Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman, because we mentioned Sherlock. They were on that BBC show together. And so we asked, what other franchises are they in together? I think we gave an example of one of them, but there are two other ones that they're in.
I forget which one was the question, which one we said.
Yes. So they are in the MCU, and I think that was the example we gave that they're in the MCU together because, of course, Benedict Cumberbatch is Doctor Strange, and then Martin Freeman is Agent Ross. He was in Black Panther. He was also in Marvel Civil War or Captain America Civil War.
Mhm.
But those two were also in the Hobbit series together. Benedict Cumberbatch voiced Smaug. I think he voiced a couple other
He might have.
things in that as well, but for sure he did Smog. And then Martin Freeman, of course, was Bilbo, did a fantastic job as Bilbo. I dislike the Hobbit trilogy for wasting how good of a job Martin Freeman did as Bilbo. It's like the first movie is like 2/3 was about him, but there's a third that wasn't. And then it just got less and less as the story went on. It's like, these are called the Hobbit. He exists. Focus on him. So
Yeah.
there's my rage.
Calm down.
For thank you. I needed that. Finally, someone just told me to calm down and it worked. Guys, if anyone you know is freaking out, just tell them calm down. That
Especially
works.
women.
Especially women, especially your wives. That works really well. You just tell them calm down and they do. It's like magic. So we're being sarcastic, obviously. If you can't tell that that's sarcasm, I don't know. You're watching the wrong program, I think. All right.
Shouldn't be watching us at all.
I have a live feed in my house, so you're welcome. Did you have trivia for this week, Brian?
No, I thought you did.
Oh, yep. So in the comics, there's a number of characters that were able to lift Mjolnir. And so which of these characters, I'm going to do a multiple choice here. Which of these characters has not lifted Mjolnir? A, Loki, B, Wolverine, C, Jane Foster, or D, Eddie Brock?
Huh. Interesting choices.
There you go.
I do not know because I am not a comic reader.
Well, there you go. And just so that you know, too, you're like, Eddie Brock. Why'd you? Eddie Brock is the Venom, is the main guy who played Venom, and Jane Foster is Natalie Portman from the movies, Thor's girlfriend. So,
I could say, Matt's the bigger nerd because he does comics, but I'm also the one who knows all about Power Rangers. So, I mean, who's the bigger nerd?
I love that there's nerddom that can like be so deep and intricate, but that like someone else who's a nerd has no knowledge of, but they've got something else. And so we've got someone actually who's going to be coming on once the Book of Boba Fett is done. He's like a huge Star Wars guy. And so I'm excited for that guest star to pop in. We're going to do an episode about the Book of Boba Fett, and it'll be a lot of fun. So we'll finally have someone on who knows more about Star Wars than I do. I wouldn't say like I'm a huge Star Wars aficionado. I like it, and I probably know more than you, Brian. But
you definitely do.
I definitely don't know as much as like there are some people that just really go hard after Star Wars. And I'm like, well, good for you guys. I know Kashyyyk is the home of the Wookiees and I can spell it, but I mean,
I'm a mid-tier Star Wars fan.
Yeah, I'm probably high tier, but I'm not elite, not by a long shot. So
yeah.
I think a comparison would be like Brian knows Muppets the way that this guy knows Star Wars, and I know Muppets the way that Brian knows Star Wars. Yes. That just confused me. I just said it. Okay, you got it. Good. Because I confused myself after I said that. I'm like, did I even say that right? All right, guys. Hey, thanks so much for listening. Again, let us know your picks. We are on Facebook. We're on Twitter at TV Guys 1. And we have an email as well. Is it TV
Guys?
Right.
That's my cue to say it's TV Guys podcast at gmail.com.
I knew it. I was like, TV Guys something. TV Guys podcast at gmail.com. Also,
so you knew it was TV Guys something and you couldn't think of podcast?
I don't know things. I just completely messed my own brain up with my own sentences. I'm not the smartest guy around. So anyway, until next time, again, we love you guys stopping by and listening. So until next time, remember to stay tuned and keep watching.
Hey, Matt, I got a question for you.
Yes.
What's the name of that movie? The one where you're already
what?
The movie, with the Disney princess where she has to go reclaim her kingdom after her dad dies.
Oh, all of them?
Oh, I was thinking about Thor Ragnarok.
That was terrible. That was a terrible introduction.